June 25th, 1876. The morning sun creeps over the rolling hills of the Montana Territory, washing the Little Bighorn Valley in pale gold. The grass sways gently in the breeze, and the world seems at peace. But beneath that quiet sky, death is marching. Within hours, the earth will shake with gunfire, the river will run red, and the proud 7th Cavalry, America's finest, will be gone. And at the center of it all, one man, Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, brilliant, bold, reckless. He believed destiny itself was on his side. He believed his name would be carved into the monument of American greatness. He was right, but not for the reasons he imagined. Because on this day, Custer would make a decision that would destroy him, his men, and the myth of his own invincibility. This is the story of that fatal mistake. Custer was more than a soldier. He was a legend forged in the fires of the Civil War, a hero draped in glory, adored by newspapers, admired by politicians, and idolized by a nation hungry for stories of valor. They called him the Boy General. The Lakota called him Yellow Hair. But to those who truly knew him, Custer was a man obsessed. He had tasted fame early, and he refused to let it slip away. By 1876, his star had dimmed. Once hailed as the Union's golden boy, he was now a controversial figure, outspoken, impulsive, and increasingly desperate for redemption. The war was long over. The country had turned its gaze westward, toward the vast frontier, the land of the Great Plains, where the last resistance of the native nations stood. Custer saw his chance. One final campaign could restore his name. One decisive victory could return him to glory. But ambition, when it blinds a man, is more dangerous than any enemy. For decades, the U.S. government had signed treaties with the Plains tribes and broken every one of them. The most sacred of all was the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, which promised the Black Hills, Pahasapa, to the Lakota forever. But forever lasted only until gold was found there. And who led the expedition that confirmed it? George Armstrong Custer. When news spread of gold in the Black Hills, the rush began. Prospectors flooded into sacred land. The U.S. government looked the other way, and the Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho prepared for war. Under the leadership of Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and Gall, the tribes gathered in defiance. They would not surrender their way of life. They would not abandon their sacred ground. By the summer of 1876, thousands had gathered along the Little Bighorn River, men, women, and children, forming the largest native encampment the U.S. Army had ever faced. To Washington, it was rebellion. To the native nations, it was survival. In response, the Army devised a grand plan: 3 converging columns to trap and crush the so-called hostile forces. General Crook would march from the south, General Gibbon from the west, General Terry from the east, with Custer and his 7th Cavalry. The strategy was simple, the execution deadly. Custer's orders were clear: find the enemy, report their position, and wait for the others before attacking. But Custer was never one to wait. He trusted instinct more than orders, speed more than caution. He believed in the power of surprise, that a fast strike could shatter any opponent before they had time to think. It had worked before, but this time, the rules were different. Custer's scouts warned him. The village ahead was massive, thousands of teepees, thousands of warriors. Even his native scouts, men like Mitch Boyer and Bloody Knife, urged him to wait. Custer refused. He believed the enemy was on the run, scattered and weak. He thought this was his moment of triumph, his ticket back to the front pages. But that confidence would soon turn to catastrophe. He divided his command of 600 men into 3 separate battalions, one under Major Marcus Reno, another under Captain Frederick Benteen, and one he would lead himself. Dividing your forces is a risk, even more so when you don't understand your enemy. But Custer believed his old Civil War tactics would work again. Speed, confusion, shock. He was wrong. June 25th, mid-morning. The 7th Cavalry rides down toward the Little Bighorn. The land is rugged, carved by deep ravines and twisting gullies. Dust clouds rise behind the horses' hooves. From the ridges, native scouts spot the movement. War cries echo across the valley. Custer has lost the element of surprise. The hunters have become the hunted. Reno's men are the first to engage. They charge toward the southern edge of the encampment and are immediately met with overwhelming force. Hundreds of warriors pour from the teepees, moving fast, coordinated, deadly. Reno's line collapses under the pressure. Men fall, horses scream. The survivors retreat across the river, leaving their dead behind. Custer never sees it. He's already miles away, heading north, convinced that Reno's attack is drawing the enemy away. In truth, the full fury of the Native Alliance is now turning toward him. As Custer's column climbs the ridges overlooking the river, the truth becomes clear. Below him stretches a sea of teepees, thousands of them, stretching farther than he can count. Warriors ride out from every direction. The trap has closed. His men dismount and form firing lines. The air fills with dust, smoke, and fear. War cries rise from every hill. Bullets and arrows rain down. Horses bolt in panic. Still, Custer refuses to retreat. He fights as he always has, pushing forward, searching for an opening, believing that courage alone could turn the tide. But courage cannot change numbers. Against over 2,000 warriors, led by men who know every inch of this land, the 7th Cavalry stands no chance. Within minutes, the line begins to crumble. The battle fragments into chaos. Small groups of soldiers fighting, dying, and vanishing into the smoke. No one knows where Custer is. Some say he tried to rally his men on a hilltop now known as Last Stand Hill. Others say he was hit early, struck down in the first wave. By late afternoon, the shooting fades. The echoes die. The Little Bighorn Valley falls silent again. When reinforcements arrive days later, they find a nightmare. Every man under Custer's direct command, over 200 soldiers, lies dead. Custer himself is found among them, his body pierced by bullets, stripped of uniform, his famous golden hair cut away. The legend of the boy general had ended not in triumph, but in dust and ruin. For decades, the nation searched for answers. Was it arrogance? Was it poor intelligence? Was it fate? Historians, soldiers, and storytellers all agree on one thing. Custer's downfall was not a matter of bad luck. It was the result of one catastrophic error: his refusal to see the enemy as equals. He underestimated their strength, their unity, and their resolve. He ignored his scouts, he disobeyed his orders, and he divided his force against an army that outnumbered him 5-1. That was his fatal mistake, the strategy that destroyed the 7th Cavalry and ended Custer's legend in fire and blood. The Battle of the Little Bighorn would become known as Custer's Last Stand. But for the Lakota and Cheyenne, it was something else entirely. A victory for their people, their ancestors, and their land. It was proof that even against the might of the U.S. Army, unity and purpose could prevail, at least for one moment in time. That moment would not last. The war would continue, and the tribes would eventually be forced onto reservations. But for that one day, under that burning Montana sun, the warriors of the plains stood as free men, and they broke the legend of the man who thought he could not be broken. Custer's fatal mistake wasn't just in tactics or timing, it was in vision. He saw the battlefield, but not the truth. He saw enemies, but not people defending their home. And that blindness, more than any bullet, was what destroyed him. The Battle of the Little Bighorn was not simply a defeat, it was a lesson written in blood. And history still whispers it today. Pride marches fast, but it never marches back. If you love real history, epic storytelling, and cinematic truth, like, comment, and subscribe to uncover more forgotten stories of the Old West.